Hey everyone, it's Stephanie here with TheFlowerFanatic. I had a viewer suggest a video on forcing bulbs. She wanted to learn more about the process, so here it is. It's forcing bulbs indoors. Hey Paulette, I hope you find this video helpful. Basically, forcing bulbs is you're just trying to trick the bulb into growing and producing blooms out of season. You're trying to mimic their natural environment outdoors, indoors. So I have tulips here, daffodils, and hyacinths. They usually bloom in March, but I'm trying to have them bloom in December and January, February, depending on how early you start. You're going to need a lot of containers. I bought these at a local thrift shop. I just spray painted them. I love spray painting things. It makes a dramatic change in the appearance, especially this one. This one had turtles on it. If you like turtles, go for it. I find this to be a lot more appealing. And I love white because it just enhances the beauty of the blooms. The first thing I did was put my bulbs in a brown paper bag. These are the daffodils. So in order to get your bulbs to sprout, they need to be chilled at about a 40 to 45 degree temperature for around 13 to 17 weeks. Bulbs can have a mind of their own. Some will sprout a little bit earlier than others. So it's been about 15 weeks and some of my tulips are starting to sprout. I have some right in here, and the little tops are starting to develop green sprouts. And you know you're doing really good when you start to see those sprouts. Once they all start to sprout, I still have a few that aren't sprouted. You move them into a location that's a little bit warmer than the 40 to 45 degree temperature. So around 50 to 60 degrees. So I'm gonna put them in my basement. It's pretty cool down there and they'll do really well. There's no sun, there's nothing that's gonna make them too warm. And I'm gonna wait till they get to about 2 inches long, all that new growth. So basically you're acclimating them like you would in the spring when it starts to warm a little bit, they start to get that new growth and then they start to develop their blooms. So right here, I will have about 2 inches of growth and hopefully 2 weeks, not the 4-week mark. I'm gonna get some of my other tulips to plant in this pot to show you how I do it. It's pretty simple. You can actually start these in pots in your cool area if you don't want to transplant the bulbs. I just prefer to put them in the brown bag because it's easier and simpler. And then I'm just going to barely plant with the tips barely showing. And I'm going to plant them fairly close together. You can plant them just as close as you want as long as they're not touching. And that gives it a much prettier, abundant look. A little bit more dramatic than if you had just one bloom spread out. Okay, I have a few more. And then once I get these all in, I'll give them a nice little watering. You can even make your soil moist before you plant them if you don't want to water them. So just dig under there. This is just indoor Miracle Grow potting mix. And this is the color purple. Okay, I got those ones in. I'm going to show you a little bit of the hyacinth growth because these bulbs are big. They're a lot bigger than tulips. And they're all starting to sprout. So I won't have to wait and let these cool a little bit longer because they're all sprouting. Okay, once you get that done, I'm going to get some water and just water them. Not soggy, just damp or moist. So this is one method. I love using these ketchup squeeze bottles. I feel like I have a lot of control with this. The water is important to help stimulate that root growth. And I have it nice and loosely packed so that those roots can grow nicely. You don't want it to be really firm, otherwise you're going to inhibit the root growth. You don't need a lot of water indoors. And once it dries out about a knuckle's worth, then you can give it another watering. But just don't overwater them. Bulbs are pretty resilient. Tougher than I think we sometimes give them credit for. Okay, so once it gets that 2-inch growth, I'm going to bring it upstairs into indirect sunlight, into a warmer climate. And once those blooms develop, I'm going to take them out of that indirect sunlight so they'll last longer. You can keep them in there, but they won't bloom as long. And you should have blooms for a good 2 to 4 weeks. How fun is it to have tulips indoors? And I can almost guarantee that my tulips almost 99.9% sure that my tulips are not going to be eaten by my deer inside. Now that I've got my tulips and some of my other tulips in here, I'm going to actually plant my hyacinth with some paper whites. Paper whites are a common Christmas bulb, and they don't need to be chilled like the hyacinth, and if I'm lucky, they'll both bloom the same time. And the paper whites require the same thing as the hyacinths do once they've been pre-chilled and you're moving them to that 50 to 60 degree location. So I'm gonna move this over here. I think it's gonna look so pretty to have the hyacinth and the paper whites combined together. I don't recommend combining the hyacinth with the tulips because you just don't know if they're gonna behave the same, but the paper whites, it's a little bit different. So I bought these paper whites for Christmas and I have not watered them or done anything to them, and they've been sitting in this pot for a month in my kitchen. And look how well they're doing. They still have a lot of that green growth. I'm just gonna mix them in here. And I'm gonna just kind of throw in the purple hyacinths with them, just so it looks natural and they're kind of intermingled. I just can't believe how big these bulbs are. They're smaller in spring, so I thought the bulbs would be smaller and the tulip bulbs would be a little bit bigger. I just wanted to add that with paper whites, you want to leave about 2/3 of the bulb exposed. It doesn't need to be planted nearly as deep as the hyacinth, which just has the barely bit of that tip pointing out. I really hope they bloom together. It'll be gorgeous, and I can't wait to show you. I also wanted to give you another important tip. When you're chilling your bulbs, you don't want to put them in the refrigerator with vegetables and fruit because they put off some sort of chemical reaction that can make the bulbs rot. I'm no chemist. That's all you need to know. And if you do these steps, you should have beautiful blooms indoors. You can start chilling around September or beginning of October. And then you can have them December, January, and February, and then also in spring outdoors. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have more questions, comment down below because I'm sure I've missed something. Give me a like and subscribe. This daffodil is actually rotten. It's squishy, so if you have any one of those, just toss them. I'm gonna get finished planting my daffodils. Can't wait to show you what these look like in about 4 weeks, hopefully. And we'll see you in my next videos. We'll talk to you later.